we've got Boo Corrigan. He was talking to ESPN, and this is what he said about TCU. We value wins. They continue to find a way to win and not give up those points in the second half. Guys, this feels like a reversal of what he said last week, where it was their game control that was an issue, and they were falling behind and then catching up and then eventually beating teams. They did fall behind to Texas Tech again. It looked like Tyree Wilson was going to wreck their offense, and then TCU's defense put the clamps down on Texas Tech.
It's like the exact TCU's opposite of what he was saying 2 weeks ago. Last week, I mean.
Exactly. That's. But you and I, we've discussed this. Like, that job is completely thankless, and you have to represent the.
No, the man's got no hope. I mean, he goes up there and he's just trying to get through the 30 minutes, and I can't imagine having to it'd be like you going on national television and defending my point about the playoff.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like the when I did the mock selection and they made me the chair and I had to do the fake press conference. This was before
we didn't do that.
So there was no real data, and nobody had ever done it before. So they had us use the 2008 season. And somebody asked me a question about why didn't you include Texas in the top 4? I'm like, well, I thought they were in the top 4. And Bill Hancock's like, you can't say that.
Can't do that.
I'll give you an example. When Gary Barta was the chair a few years ago, going into the final rankings, the last at large was Iowa State versus Indiana, and Iowa State got in. Now, he didn't tell me which way he went, which team he picked, but let's put it this way. I know on a personal level, he would never want Iowa State to be in that position. And Indiana only makes sense because the conference needed more money during the COVID year. Yet Iowa State gets in, and he has to go on to television to defend it and have Indiana people hate him for it. So this is a thankless job that I wonder when the top 12 comes, will they still have him do it? And will we still parse his words just as close as we have before?
I don't think we have to.
But there's no words to parse even. If you go read the transcript, it's all just
gobbledygook.
There's no context. I mean, it's words.
How many teams are still realistically in it at this point for the 12? Like it's probably
12.
Everybody in the top 25 at least, probably, right?
I mean, everybody's alive probably because you don't have to be good to get in. Yeah.
At this point. So
you just have to breathe, and you're a candidate.
All those dumb fan bases whose teams don't matter to Ari.
They matter when they're good.
They matter deeply to me. I love all of you. Just know that Ari hates you and Andy loves you. That's the important thing.
Somebody just mentioned Jackson State's undefeated.
They are undefeated.
That
is true.
So if we're all worried about inclusion, when are they going to?
I think they're going to make the playoff in the division that has a 24-team playoff.
But don't they play in the Celebration Bowl?
They don't have to. They can be selected for the playoff.
Okay.
So
selected to the playoff.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a 12-team scenario, all kidding aside, there have to be at least 30 teams that are in the mix still, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate, and there might be one or two that are in the top 25 now that aren't, just because they're blocked by losses that they have, in conference. There'll be somebody that'll just be above them, but
because every 3-loss team is alive, right? Like, what do you think was the point? Is the cutoff point going to be 4 losses?
It's going to be hard to get in with 4 unless you have like a just loaded schedule and you beat.
Well, who was the highest ranked 4-loss team in last year's final poll? I think that'll tell you. Like, I don't have it in front of me, and I don't know if anybody wants to look it up. But I'm looking it up right now. I'm sure there was a 4-loss team at 15-14. Like, I bet you there's going to be 4-loss teams that get into the top 12 eventually.
Okay, here is the final ranking. The first 4-loss team shows up at number 21, Arkansas.
Okay, well, that's good. That's a relief.
Yeah,
because three losses is disgusting enough. 4 would be unbearable.
The first 3-loss team shows up at number 11, and that's Utah, which would get in as the Pac-12 champ, as one of the 6 highest ranked conference champs. So the first at large, I don't know that any at large would have made it with 3 losses last year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's only been a couple. I have that list somewhere, but
yeah.
No, this is I think the only ones that it could get really wild is, say, the Big Ten West champion. If they beat Ohio State or Michigan, you could have a 4-loss team in that, but that's about it.
So Ari, I was thinking about this today. the Pac-12 race is going to be good practice for us. And Scott, you've been all over this with the Big Ten. We saw it with the ACC in 2020 where they played a divisionless schedule, but the Pac-12, the way they are going to select their teams for the championship game is, the schedule was made with the idea of division still in mind. They're going to change that too, but they're doing it just 1 and 2. Do you think, how's this going to play out? Because the race is going to get really interesting as Oregon plays Washington, as Utah and Oregon play, as USC and UCLA play. Like, I'm excited to see how this shakes out. We're going to see it in the Big 12 as well. Obviously, we've seen it in the Big 12, and this is probably the most competitive we've ever seen the Big 12. Mm-hmm. I kind of like this as a preview of the new world because the ACC is going to be like this, the SEC is going to be like this, the Big 10 is going to be like this. By 2025, they'll all be like this.
So with the Pac-12, what do you want? You like the way this is laying out then?
Well, yeah, because you've got teams that are in the mix for that championship game playing one another multiple times over the final few weeks.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's one of the smart things that conferences are going to do is hold off on their schedule. Instead of putting out a schedule for 2028 today, do it every January so you have an idea who's going to be good and build your schedule up. So then it'll help your ratings. It'll help the interest. It'll help those teams, kind of navigate their way into that, dreaded 12-team playoff.
Yeah, it'll be awful when they make it.
I know.
Terrible for their schools. It'll suck that their conferences will get more money. I mean, everything's going to be so bad about it.
Scott, because we know how Andy feels. I want to ask you man to man. In the world of the 12-team playoff, do you think the regular season will be better?
I do in certain ways. I can see your point, and I will concede this.
Thank you for at least acknowledging my point is at least not crazy.
That some of the highest level games will lose some luster. That maybe it is in or out type of scenario that could go away. However, I like the fact that there is going to be so many more games that are relevant that, we keep going to this Axe game, Minnesota, Wisconsin. But if Wisconsin is 9-2 and Minnesota 6-5, and normally they would play for is that awesome Axe. And then maybe Wisconsin goes to the ReliaQuest Bowl and maybe Minnesota goes to the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Now you've got, Wisconsin.
I think those are real sponsors. That's impressive.
That is. Stu and I go through this every Monday for about 4 hours. But in this case, Wisconsin has a chance to get in the playoff. Or if they lose, then LSU or Ole Miss or Auburn or USC could go, please lose Wisconsin. So it makes that game matter. And then it makes the other games matter too, because they're all working together. So now you have a rooting interest, probably boosts the betting because people are paying more attention rather than, hey, this
now you're speaking Ari's language.
I'm on action right now. I don't need the, I don't need any more help.
Yeah. I just need Ball State and Toledo, baby. I just need
two teams, a ref and a whistle, and I'm good to go. I mean, I don't know. That's not my, but maybe there'll be more action. I don't know.
Speaking of the Pac-12, which we were talking about with the conference title race this year, here's Boo Corrigan on ESPN talking about Oregon and why they wound up where they did.
How does the committee evaluate that 46-point loss to Georgia on the opening weekend? How big of a weight is that on the discussion surrounding Oregon?
It certainly is part of what we talk about as we go through this, but the other part of it is they've won eight consecutive games, averaging over 40 points a game, beating UCLA, who's well respected by the committee. And again, we're looking at the overall body of work where it's not about one game, it's about what have they done throughout the entire season.
How do you evaluate the level of opponent that Oregon has played since that game and how it impacts your evaluation?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at everything combined as we're looking at it. Strength of schedule is one of the components that we do look at. But again, how they play as a team, how they play together is really what we're looking at overall as we go through this process. Again, they've been very impressive.
So that's Boo Corrigan talking about Oregon. I think that
Boo Corrigan has really big Cocktail and Key West vibes, doesn't he?
He does.
I like him. I want to drink with that guy by the beach. Yeah.
Like you don't expect that voice to come out of that body, but then when it does, you're like, I want to party with this guy.
Yeah, this guy, that guy gets after it, I bet.
So we will see what happens with Oregon. The more I think about it, because we've kind of led the show with this tonight, that road, it's very similar to kind of the way I feel about TCU the rest of the way. That road is hard.
It is.
If you can traverse that road without another loss.
Do you think they're going to lose again? Because I do.
I think it's highly possible. It's the same way I feel about TCU. It's very hard to imagine TCU beating Texas and Baylor. But
do you think TCU is going to win on Saturday?
I think they'll win Saturday. I think they'll win Saturday and lose to Baylor. If I had to pick which one of those I thought they would
get 2-1 on that. They're pretty big dogs this week.
I know they are. I know. But the way Texas plays games and the way TCU plays games, it's like a hand in a glove. Like
it is.
TCU falls behind and then comes back and wins, and Texas takes a lead and then tries to give it away. Like that's what we've seen.
What if TCU just goes up 17-0? Would the world explode?
That would be weird. And there'd be a lot of tweeting in the first quarter, which I tell everybody is a bad idea. Don't tweet in the first quarter because it's going to be thrown back in your face in about 2 hours.
I remember one of our national colleagues tweeted about Nebraska's first touchdown against Northwestern.
Hey!
That wasn't one of us. But
no, it was me.
It was me too. I was just like, which one was it? Yeah.
No, but somebody, the one who did it said somebody was smart enough to rank him in the top 25.
Oh, okay. I wasn't that bad. I took a shot at Narduzzi making fun of Whipple, which, given Pitt's results this season,
when Nebraska scored,
I feel fairly vindicated.
I think I tweeted, when do we start taking Nebraska seriously as national title contenders?
I remember it.
Yeah. But that was a joke.
One or two people took you seriously there, but not many. So, one other Boo Corrigan piece of sound I want to hear.
Props to you for putting it together too. That was impressive.
It's not me. Props to our producers Cam Molina and John Hayes.
Oh, John and Cam. I thought you said you were recording it, but
no.
Awesome.
They are kicking butt behind the scenes. So here is Boo Corrigan talking about LSU. I'm very curious to hear this because Ari, you and I have said 2-loss LSU, if they win the SEC championship, beat Georgia, they're going to be in, very similar to the 2017 Auburn situation. But neither of us is actually on the committee, and Boo Corrigan is. So let's hear what he had to say.
Because LSU, also like Oregon, playing its best ball of the season right now, but they have a couple of losses on their resume too.
Well, as you know, conference championships, head-to-head competition are all part of it. They've got that early season loss to Florida State. The other loss to LSU. They've come back strong since then. What an incredible game on Saturday night down at LSU that they were able to win, go for 2, and get that win. And as we look at it, we'll continue to evaluate.
Translation, if they can beat Georgia, they're totally forgiven.
I want to see Oregon go through unscathed and LSU beat Georgia at the end and see that discussion.
Well, I mean, LSU's already won a national title with 2 losses. Why can't they do it again?
But then Tennessee would have a road win against the SEC champ by 27 points.
That actually is interesting. Like if LSU somehow gets it done, Oregon's out.
Yeah,
that's it.
Tennessee's in. Yeah. Like.
That wasn't a road win. They kicked the crap out of them.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't remember what the final score was, but it was.
I think it was 40-13.
Were we? Well, see, that's the thing too. It's like I gave Oregon crap for being eliminated for a blowout loss. If LSU gets in with a blowout loss and 2 losses, that would go against all the criteria that the committee has used since, which means that winning the SEC, regardless of what your resume is, it takes precedent over anything else. Which is probably fair.
I know everybody calls me an SEC homer, but that's another reason to expand it, because if it's going to be that way, it can be that way fairly if you think it's fair that it's that way, or completely unfair that it's that way. It probably shouldn't be that way. So
under that scenario, you're going to have 3 SEC teams. You're gonna have the Big Ten champ. You're gonna have Georgia because that's their only loss. You have Tennessee. That's only loss.
Right. Good Lord.
And you're gonna have LSU. So
could they figure out how to do 12 by next year? Because I think there'd be some pressure.
What might happen is that Tennessee would still be left out, and they would find 2. I think like Ohio State or Michigan, the winner of that game would be one of them. And then there might be another one in there somewhere.
Well, then Oregon, no, we're not going with Oregon. TCU, they're going to, if they have a loss, they're not going to be one of them. So then what? The loser of the Ohio State-Michigan game over a third SEC team?
Oh, well, I mean, we're just like...
2 SEC and 2 Big Ten would just be about perfect, too.
Wouldn't it be just great if it was all 4 SEC and that was it?
Well, hold on, guys. Wait. What if Ole Miss beats Alabama and then wins the Egg Bowl?
Undefeated Michigan Big Ten champ is out.
Oh my God.